ready and excited.
All right, excellent. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Joe, totally my pleasure. So glad we're having this chat.
Absolutely, me too. So I always begin our conversations with the 6 years ago, the COVID thing. It changed so much about all of us. We don't talk about it a whole lot, maybe because of what we went through, but I think it's good to revisit. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
I actually love that you started here because this was such a weird time for me.
Yeah.
I was actually 9 months pregnant when
Wow.
we all left work and went off. So I remember going from having that phase of knowing about COVID, but not knowing how serious it would be or how much it would affect us, to what seemed like all of a sudden realizing this is a big deal. To having one day, which I believe was March 13th,
Yeah.
2020, when we all went home. And the thing is that that week was actually when my company had my in-office baby shower, and there was a buffet. Like we were all sharing from a buffet as I was 9 months pregnant. And then 2 days later went home and didn't come back for ages.
Yeah.
And so I was actually off. I ended up having my little girl, my third and last. And I was on mat leave for about 6 months while everybody else was working from home. But here's the thing, it wasn't easy. I had a newborn and I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old all home with me. And my husband was working from home, but we had no help from our family or from anyone else because it was COVID. So I remember introducing my daughter to the grandparents from outside the window, like the grandparents all standing outside the window and me holding her up like the Lion King,
Yeah.
showing her off. And even in those couple weeks before we went home, like not knowing what this would really mean for us or how long it would go, but then it just kept dragging, 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 dragging.
Yeah.
So the thing is that I was working for a consumer goods company. I was a executive in the HR and transformation space. I had my mat leave, and then I came back to work there virtually for a while. And at that time, I was doing a lot of reflection, as we do when something major changes. And I actually say to a lot of people, sometimes you need that space to be able to think and reflect and really figure out what you want to do if you're in the right space, if you are feeling like you are able to contribute and feel fulfilled at the level you're looking for. And I ended up deciding to look for a new position. So I stayed in my role, I was looking around, and then all of a sudden I got the call from Walmart's executive recruiters, and I ended up making the leap. But I started my new role virtually
Yeah.
again because of COVID. So this was now 2021. I did go into the office a couple times that year. I met my boss, I met my coworkers, but I didn't meet my team. We didn't bring the earlier career people physically in, and I wasn't working in the office. It would be something like once a month or once every other month where we would meet up in the physical space, very much distance to have a session. And eventually we started going back more and more and more. And by the time I left, we were back 3 to 4 days a week, 3 days mandatory, but it was very much encouraged for executive leaders to come in more often. And that was about the time where it no longer was compatible with my lifestyle. It was about 3 hours of a commute a day. And when I was first hired, that wasn't the reality, but having to come back and deal with traffic on the road and the volume, it just kind of stopped working for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting how the world has maintained that hold on being virtual, so to speak. And I think it's good. I think when we look at the carbon imprint, we look at how much effort it takes to just go somewhere when you can literally hop on screen because you're still sharing the ideas, you're still in the middle of it, but it still seems weird because I come from that Gen X world where it was like everything was in person. Like if you proposed, 20, 30 years ago, the idea of not coming into an office, people would think you're crazy.
Yes, 100%. And the thing is that now I run my consulting firm mBolden, and so many of my clients have returned back to the office between 2 and 5 days a week. I don't think any of them are actually fully virtual or open to being fully virtual. And so we've very much come back. But I would say that there are lifestyle differences and different reactions from people around what they are willing and able to do in their lifestyle. As we know, so many people moved out of town during COVID, but also people took on new habits and ways of thinking and ways of working. And a lot of people I've seen got laid off from their corporate jobs and actually chose not to go back. And so that's where I see that, yes, absolutely, people are going back to work. And we're getting closer to what it was like in those days well before COVID,
Yeah.
but not everybody. And there is some incredible talent that is building their own thing, innovating, creating a portfolio career, and actually opting out of the traditional ways of work.
Yeah. So let's get into your work, what you do every
Sure.
day. As a global speaker and advisor, I want to get a specific handle. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds at Career Day. And one of the
Sure.
kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you synthesize your day job to make sense to them?
So I would say to these 13-year-olds, I help companies take a big idea or a strategy, what they want to achieve in their business, and I help them actually do it.
Yeah.
And the way I do it is I help them execute. I help them make a really good plan and then do the things on that plan in a way that is consistent, dependable, high quality, with no surprises. So they actually get to the results at the end of the year.
So what would be an example of something like that that would make sense to the kids?
So this could be something like if at the beginning of the year, you have a list of goals, things that you want to achieve. And what often happens is we set those goals on January 1st, and then we don't think about them again. And then at the end of the year, if we do look back on the year, we say, oh, it would have been great if that happened, but we didn't actually get around to it. What I do is I make sure January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, we know exactly what we have to do so that if we're really serious about achieving those goals from the beginning of the year, then by the end of the year, we're just checking on how successful we've
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
We're not looking back to say, I wish,
Yeah.
because oftentimes companies are going into wishes and hopes and dreams. And if they're actually making their goals and they're not getting delivered and they're just changing the targets, which so often happens because companies are being too nice or they don't want to get in trouble or they don't want to risk their personal performance over a corporate commitment or priority. So they kind of punt it down the road a little bit. But then at the end of the year, it hasn't happened. And they're thinking, well, are we adding it to next year and doing twice as much next year? Or are we really giving up on our hopes for what we wanted to do next year and still going back to what we were supposed to do the year before? That's how we stop being competitive because it's not every company that's kind of giving up on the goals. Some of them
Yeah.
actually are serious. And those are the ones that we see taking the lead and the other ones keep falling farther behind in the race until it's too late.
That makes total sense. So what did you want to be when you were that age? When you were 12 or 13, what was your dream job?
I really didn't know. The thing about me as a young person is I was always intellectually curious.
Hmm.
I'm someone who can be happy in a lot of different paths. Like I can find the joy, I can find the challenge. I care a lot about working with great people, people who challenge me, who get me thinking, and who I can have that rapport and back and forth with. I think I was probably open to law, to business, to different curiosity type careers. I remember at one point I loved math and physics, and I thought it would be great to go into a career in that space where I could just be coming up with new ways to apply my knowledge and to build and come up with that next great thing. But I really didn't know. And I went to university when I was very young. Like I applied and got accepted when I was 16.
Wow.
I turned 17 that summer and started in the September a couple years ago.
Wow.
And I took psychology as a science because it seemed very applicable. I
Yeah.
figured I could go into a lot of different areas, but it really was because I was so young that I didn't know what I really wanted to do.
Gotcha.
And I ended up taking industrial organizational psychology as a master's degree and starting to work in boutique consulting. I got a job with the government over here in Ontario, Canada, which was phenomenal because the thing people discount sometimes with government is they say, oh, slow, bureaucratic, not a lot's getting done. I'll say we got a ton done
Yeah.
and we were moving fast. And we had these massive scopes in economic development. We were consulting with stakeholders, businesses across the province. Like that was an incredibly fulfilling job. And I ended up doing an MBA in finance and strategy while I was in that role. That was my night and weekend task.
Yeah.
And I ended up graduating and moving over to a big four consulting firm where I spent the next nearly 8 years moving up the ladder before going corporate. But none of that was planned. I actually had this, my parents would kill me if they knew. And they actually do listen to my podcast. So sorry, mom and dad. But when I was in undergrad and I was applying for grad schools, I had the GMAT, GRE, LSAT all scheduled. I'd somewhat studied for them all, but I really didn't know where I wanted to go. So I ended up doing the GRE first and I nailed it, which then gave me a lot of flexibility around academic type graduation or academic graduate programs
Yeah.
like the Masters of Psychology. And I actually skipped the other tests. Like I was scheduled, I just didn't show up because I
Yeah.
thought, what I did was good enough.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
Yeah.
That's the difference between doing this stuff as something like a 19-year-old when I graduated from undergrad versus having started a little later with a little more maturity and really been proactive and thoughtful about my options. I would still say I ended up in an excellent place, a place where I've built a incredibly fulfilling career. But I just mean to say I did not know where it would go, and it
Sure.
was not something I planned from the beginning.
Yeah. It's interesting when you mentioned the government of Canada. Having a jazz radio show, a lot of the artists get grants. There's a lot of money that goes into the arts in
Yeah.
Canada. And I think it's really wonderful. And I think it really puts the money where your mouth is because we all talk about how important the arts are. But it seems like in Canada, there's a specific focus to really get that out to the people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that we think a lot about what is the purpose of living? What's the joy of
Yeah.
being part of society
Yep.
if we don't have the arts, if we don't have visual arts, if we don't have music? And I'm so lucky living in Toronto, Canada, that we have absolutely beautiful theaters. We have musical theaters, we have acting theaters, we have Massey Hall and Roy Thompson
Yep.
Hall. We have so many spaces where the music is absolutely built into our enjoyment. I have tickets. So I take my daughter to the ballet going into a slightly different art form. She has been so inspired. And the funny thing is, she doesn't want to be a ballerina.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the type of thing where she sees it and she has decided she wants to go into this space. She's 6 years old now, but she is so inspired in her drawing and her singing and the other things that she does because of the beauty and talent that she sees on stage. And
Yeah.
so I'm very grateful to have this so close, the National Ballet of Canada,
Yeah.
20 minutes from my home.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you this. Who's been your inspiration or your heroic force in your life that's allowed you to navigate to right now define your professional foothold?
I've had specific people who have been incredible heroic forces every step of the way. And none of them would know that that was the role they played for me. I can think of one woman when I was working for the government and I was very junior. This was the early days, right out of, actually, I was still in my first master's degree and I went into government as a co-op student. I spent a couple years there and I was looking for that next role within government. And she ended up hiring me into this economic development position, 2 levels more senior than I had been. And she gave me so much autonomy and space to deliver. And I never experienced something like that in my career. But I'll tell you, when she took that leap of faith on me, I was going to do anything I could to prove her right.
Yeah.
And I did. But it was something that really changed the trajectory of my career because I learned so much in that role. And I had to figure out so much in that position that it really teed me up and primed me for this career where I would be capable of guiding and leading my own path and coming to answers that weren't straight out given to me.
Yeah. So, getting a company to follow through on a big idea is probably a lot of pressure to be the
Yes.
one that's in charge of all of these steps that they have to carry out. A lot on
Yes.
your shoulders. What is that energy every day for you to do that at a high level? Take care of your soul, your family. All of these things need to be done at a high level. What is that motivation for you every day to do that?
Nobody ever asks me that. And I so appreciate you doing that because I think of transformation as a job where I'm giving a lot on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
I have to show up high energy. I have to be positive. I have to be the one that when it feels and seems very complex and stressful, and we are operating together in this constant change, and competitors are moving, there's new technology, there are new economic announcements, geopolitical shifts that are affecting what we're doing on the day to day. I have to make sure that people can still see the forest through the trees and feel how important they are in actually getting to that endpoint. And so the thing is that I think of myself as somebody who's very much outcome oriented, but also has to think about and care for people all the way along the journey, building resilience, maintaining their growth mindset, building their skills so that every time they hit a new point of challenge, they are well positioned to get there. And I look at this on the human level to say there's very little that stresses me out because the thing I'm best at is taking complexity and actually distilling it down to the unemotional facts
Yeah.
and then being able to translate that to people so that they can keep their head in the game of next step, next step, next step. Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right, right.
And when you're going through what can be a multi-billion-dollar corporate transformation, it's a lot of bites of an elephant.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes forget what you're trying to go to because there is so much in the way. But I love that you mentioned the points outside of work as well,
Yeah.
because I actually built this model and it's the mBolden 4 levels model. Okay, so I came up with this in front of the room working with an executive team. And then I decided to actually put it on paper after the fact because it resonated so well in the moment. So think about 4 levels of investment for our time. The first level is business as usual. So,
Yeah.
what would be in our job description, what we're being paid to do, about 40 hours a week of effort for us as well as our teams. And that's just doing our job.
Yeah.
That's often what we scope our time to be, like the business as usual time. But that's not all we're spending our time on.
Hmm.
So we have business as usual. Then we have strategic transformational layer. This can be putting in place new strategy, new technology, new ways of thinking and working. It can be going through a strategic org project or program, whether a restructure, an acquisition, anything that's outside of your business as usual.
Yeah.
But that's not it. We also have employee layer. So employee layer is our third layer. And this is that point where we have certain cyclical processes. We have talent management, performance management. We have the learning cadence, having to take time for ourselves and our team to actually learn the next thing we have to do. And then we have surprises. So what happens if your top performer walks out the door tomorrow? Like all of a sudden, your time is hijacked. You are having to fill a gap in delivery and capacity, but you're also having to go and source the new person to fill that role,
Yeah.
go through all the interviews, you hire them, you're now having to onboard them, integrate them into your team. And there's also the day-to-day, just coaching, mentoring, spending time with your people that takes up your capacity. And we often forget to actually build any of that
Yeah.
into the business as usual or how we spend our time. Now, last layer, human layer. So this is the fourth, the pinnacle layer. I often think about what it means to go about your day, do your job, live your life. And if you ever face something like a health issue within yourself or your family, you know that everything else stops. Nothing else feels important when you are dealing with a health issue.
Yeah.
And it's the same where you could be trying to sell your home in a tough housing market. You could be going through a relationship breakdown. You could be dealing with any of those challenges. Your kid being bullied at school. It doesn't have to be something where it's a massive health issue. It can be something like your kid's having a hard time and it's taking up your mental capacity and your actual time to go deal with this at the school and chat with your kid. And so when you plan out your day, your week, your month, how much are you planning for? Are you actually planning for all of these layers or just that 9 to 5 business as usual slice? And then everything else piles in. And that's why we can often feel like we are moving at the pace, the speed of light as fast as anybody could go, but it's just not enough.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
the reality, it's not enough.
Right. Absolutely. No, you're totally right. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
If you had a dream tonight and you ran into the 18-year-old version of you and you walked into a room and there was a
Yes.
film projector and you click play and there was a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived, the choices you made, would that young version of you believe it?
I think that young version of me probably would believe it because here's the thing. I was very ambitious as a young person. I didn't have a path, a single space that I wanted to go, but I remember believing that I would do big things. And I was and continue to be a workhorse. And like I say, I'm optimistic, I'm positive, and I just want to chase impact.
Yeah.
So I would say young me would believe it. Young me would probably say, this is a really cool life.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it was easy getting to this point, but I would say all the ups, all the downs, all of the challenging moments built skills, knowledge, experience, lessons learned that have helped me get to this place. And I have no regrets, even though I think 18-year-old me would be looking ahead, thinking in some cases, oh, I'm not looking forward to those
Yeah.
moments. But still, from where I am now, I don't have regrets. And I have a very cool life. I have a beautiful family, a wonderful husband. I have the right amount of travel in my work.
Yeah.
I've been able to consult or speak in 14 countries. I've worked with over 80 clients, and I've created impact in ways that make me feel really proud, both with my clients, but also my community. And that means a lot to me.
So when you look at that 60-second highlight reel, what are you
Yes.
ultimately the happiest about, the proudest of?
I I think if I look back at that 60-second highlight reel, I would be most proud of the things I've built, the things that didn't exist before, and I made them out
Yeah.
of thin air. Like I would be most proud of the family that I'm raising. 3 kids with completely different personalities, big personalities, a lot of opinions, who are carving out their own niches and finding their passions that are all, by the way, completely different from each other.
Yeah.
I'd be most proud of my business. I would be most proud of the consultancy that was not easy. And it's not even been 3 years. It's almost 3 years since I started it, but it didn't exist before. I conceptualized like this vision of being able to work with the same kinds of clients I worked with when I was in a big 4 firm, but under my own brand, with my own methodology, with my own focus on impact. And as I said, I had no corporate consulting brand when I started this. I had all this experience. I'd been a corporate executive leader, but embolden meant nothing. Embolden was just a word. It wasn't anything that people associated with the types of work or impact that we would do.
Yeah.
And creating that connection in knowledge to like, this is the place you go when you are trying to take strategy, convert it to outcomes. And you're looking to do it by aligning your leaders, creating effective governance, helping people make good decisions faster, help people actually learn and understand how to operate in an outcome-driven system without losing their engagement or the respect for each other or the dignity of collaboration and operating in a environment where things are still constantly changing, but to do it without forgetting the people. Like now I think we're building this really solid brand and it's happened pretty quickly, but it wasn't easy. And I remember in the first 6 months of it thinking, I don't know how this is going to work, when this is going to work. And it still came together.
Yeah.
But that was a hard slog to bring it there. So I feel very proud of taking the leap, leaving corporate world, persevering, and building those pieces. And then I'll say on the social impact side, I recently hosted an event for nearly 100 people. Most of them were young people, some middle schoolers, a lot of high school and university kids and 30 very senior executives and founders from across industry. I called the event the Next Gen Future Forum, and the whole focus was taking young people who are about to inherit the world of work and connect them with the people currently today shaping the world of work. So
Yeah.
they could cross-pollinate on ideas, but also just to give young people a sense of what they're coming into, because
Hmm?
I feel like we're just moving the goalposts for them.
Yeah.
We're telling them like, focus, work hard in school, get good marks, and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Is it? Is it? Are those jobs that we're preparing them for still going to be there when they finish school? I don't know. So this event was all about building a level of confidence in the core skills they're going to need, and as well as building their network to actually best position them for the future of work. It was all social impact. My firm sponsored it. Nobody paid to be there. And it was something that people really got. Like they understood what we were trying to do and they got massive value. So it's going to be an annual thing for us. And if
Wonderful.
any listeners are interested and they are in Canada, send me a note, reach out, check out mBolden.co and let me know if you want to be part of this
Yeah.
because it is this great opportunity to give back. Or if you have young kids, happy to have them.
Yeah, and I will put those links in the show notes. So, Suzanne, at the end of the day, let's get to the marrow of your soul.
Yes.
Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but
Yes.
you're in control of what the world sees. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm someone who is the same no matter where I am. I think of myself as hyper authentic. I don't think of myself as someone who makes an effort to be inspirational or motivational. I actually make the effort to create the outcomes and be dependable, be reliable, be someone who, when you want to do something, whether it's in your work, it's in your life, like a true friend and colleague and someone who you can count on to help you get what you want.
Yeah.
I would say the thing that I'm really proud of in terms of my orientation is I'm not a fair weather friend. Like, I don't care if you are the CEO of some impressive company or if you lost your job 6 months ago and are having a hard time getting back into the world of work. You are equally valuable to me. I will be answering your calls, having lunches with you, connecting, doing whatever I can to support you. And that's really what matters to me, what's valuable, being there for people when they need it.
So let's take this a step further. If anybody wants to get involved with Embolden, reach out to you. Any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, I would love this. SuzanneKnight.com for any of the speaking and then embolden.co for any of the consulting.
Okay.
And I would be very happy to chat with people as well. We'll put my email in the show notes so you can also reach out direct. But I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. I will put all that in the show notes. Suzanne, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your passion. I really appreciate it.
I love this, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. And
Yes.
you are a phenomenal host. I just felt like this was so comfortable. And the
Yeah.
questions you asked were the questions that I'm rarely asked, but I'm so glad you did. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I